So this video is going to teach you how you can use GitHub Desktop as a version control software to keep track of your coding changes over time. The workflow I'm going to use is saving track on an autonomous rover that I've been working on. This tutorial assumes two things. One, that you've already created a repo, and two, that you have GitHub Desktop installed. If you don't know how to do either of those things, I've got a link in the video description below on how you can do that. So let's go ahead and navigate to our repository. So I'm going to show it in my local folder. First thing I'm going to do is make a folder. I'm going to call this one my Mars rover, because this is the project I'm currently working on. Once I've made my new folder, I'm going to go inside my IDE, and I'm going to save my code, because I'm done for the day. So I'll go ahead and choose save. I'll go find my repo. In this case, it is my test repo robotics. Inside my Mars rover, I'm going to give it a rover_main.py. Give it a descriptive name. When I go to GitHub Desktop, you'll now notice I have some new changes that are being made. Anything that's green plus is a new file that's being added. And then inside the file itself, you can actually see all these new lines that have been changed throughout it. When you're making commits, you can give it a summary for what it is. In this case, it's auto-completing create rover.py. My first description is going to be init commit on rover code. I'm going to add in a little more descriptions. Say init servo object, and then drill up and down logic. I'll commit that to my master branch. I'll push to the origin to throw it up to GitHub Desktop. Now let's say I come back and I make some changes to my code. Let's say I actually want to create two different servos. I will grab my first object, I make some changes, and let's say I have PWM1, this is at board D0, and I now have an attack mechanism. I save my code over, I go back to GitHub Desktop, you notice there's some new changes. Those changes show up in green or in yellow for a modified file, and then on the file itself you can actually see the sections that I've changed. And then I can give myself a relevant description. Now that I make some changes, you want to make sure you're using relevant descriptions over time so you can go back to your history. If you don't, it will come back to bite you in the butt. So for me, I'm going to say added attack servo, and in my description, I'm simply init attack servo on new pin D2. I'll commit to my master branch and I'll push the origin. Now when I come to my history panel, we can see where I've made my initial commit. I've created that initial project, and then I added an attack servo with my descriptions over time. So I can actually start seeing a history of my code base changing over time. The real benefit of GitHub Desktop comes in when I need to go back in time and change those changes. So let's say when I change these drill angles, that it actually was worse than what it previously was. Cool thing about that is I can grab that commit, I can right click, say revert changes in commit. It will actually remove those two changes to what it was previously and set them back to what they were before. So I push that origin, I should be able to open up my editor now, and it's back to where my change drill angles were actually incorrect. So that's where the real money of version control comes in. The real benefit that you want to do, and to really make sure that version control works for you, is that you are giving yourself appropriate titles and appropriate descriptions every single time you're making a commit. I also suggest you make commits anytime that you add in a new major feature, or perhaps at the end of each coding session for the day. As well, proper file management helps. So if you're working on new projects, you should make sure that you create new folders for whatever project it is that you are working on. And that's it. That is a very basic overflow of using how you can use GitHub Desktop to keep track of your code changes over time. I hope you find that helpful, and best of luck on your projects.